Some taxes, like those on tobacco and alcohol, are corrective taxes, also called sin taxes. These are levied, at least in part, to discourage people from using products deemed harmful to both users and society. To some extent, these taxes capture the externalized costs of the private choice to consume these products. These taxes are not cash cows for states. They account for roughly 1% of revenue, or $7.3 billion in 2017, according to the Urban Institute. It's largely for good reason. Alcohol is potentially one of the most harmful substances to society, surpassing the total harm and societal harm attributable to more commonly demonized drugs like heroin and crack cocaine, according to UK research published in The Lancet. And there is serious reason to be concerned. According to the National Institutes of Health, 87% of adults surveyed over the age of 26 have tried alcohol in their life, half of adults in the last month. For cigarettes, that stat is 18%. While drug use is arguably concerning, the expectation of drug abstinence may be unrealistic. Specialists in the field of drugs and behavior, like the psychopharmacologist Dr. Carl Hart, make the case that, quote, people will always use drugs. They always have used drugs. We must learn to live with this fact. It's true. Drug use will likely always be part of society, whether we're talking about the American ritual of a morning Joe or some of the oldest evidence of marijuana use found in ancient China. Speaking of marijuana, could it actually discourage or replace alcohol or tobacco usage? There's reason to suspect so. After the latter, it's the most frequently used controlled substance. Nearly half of surveyed American adults over the age of 26 report having tried pot in their lifetime, and almost 9% have used it in the last month. With that kind of popularity, it's fortunate that the UK drug harm study quantified cannabis as less than a third as harmful than alcohol and sharply safer than tobacco, especially for the user. Now, it may not be as safe as mushrooms, but hey, we're talking about degrees of marginal harm here. Marijuana hits a sweet spot where enough Americans have tried it to know they can rationally be users and live another day. Even as much as evidence suggests that substances like LSD, ecstasy, and mushrooms are safer for the user in society, low participation rates and decades of media misinformation probably contribute to the challenge of convincing the average American that users aren't guaranteed to have psychotic breaks from taking them. Although, never say never. While marijuana is illegal on the US federal level, as of this recording, 35 states have legalized medical use, and 14 states have either fully legalized or decriminalized the Schedule 1 substance. At least 10 of these states levy either a general sales tax or an exclusive tax on marijuana, increasing its cost in the market. These taxes raise revenue for these states. Pre-grade lockdown estimates projected $1.8 billion for all the U.S. states involved in 2020, according to the Tax Foundation. Is there any trade-off or opportunity cost to imposing these taxes? Probably. Is there a chance part of the cost includes fewer users abandoning alcohol or tobacco? For that to be true, cannabis would have to be seen as a substitute good by users, demonstrated by changes in the price of either cannabis or alcohol causing same direction changes in demand for the other. A meta-analysis in 2020 found 30 out of 65 qualifying studies that provided support for substitution, while 17 suggested complementarity, that a change in the price of either cannabis or alcohol causes a different direction change in the demand for the other. To quantitatively show substitution, we would look at the cross-price elasticity of demand. This measure looks at the magnitude of the change in the quantity of one good and compares it to the magnitude of the change in the price of another, with the presumption that there is a relationship between the two goods. The equation for the cross elasticity is the percentage change in the quantity demanded of good A at a specific price divided by the percentage change in the price of good B. A 1999 study by researchers at the University of Western Australia arrives at a possible cross-price elasticity for alcohol in regards to a change in the price of marijuana between 0.1 and 0.5 that estimated cross-price elasticity range remains above zero, indicates that an increase in the price of marijuana likely leads to an increase, albeit a smaller one, in demand for alcohol. That's the kind of relationship you would expect from substitute goods. Let's suppose for a moment then that marijuana could act as a substitute for alcohol. Many states, including New York, have a tax on alcohol. Again, this is likely intended to reach an optimal point of deterring use while maximizing revenue. If New York were to legalize marijuana, in part to further deter consumers from using alcohol, would a tax on marijuana significantly interfere with the plan? To know that, we have to understand the price elasticity of demand for marijuana itself. In other words, the percentage change in the quantity of marijuana demanded divided by the percentage change in the price of marijuana. Will consumers react disproportionately to changes in the price of marijuana? Could we significantly sway weed sales by changing the tax rate and therefore the final market price? Most studies due to research design limitations could only arrive at elasticities for participation rates, the likelihood that somebody may try marijuana, a less useful measure for a market that depends upon frequent users to be sustainable. But a study in 2015 broke ground using a novel data set from thepriceofweed.com to arrive at a rare estimate of price elasticity of demand for marijuana, not participation. Their figures range from negative 0.67 to negative 0.79. For reference, prior research has placed beer at between negative 0.7 and negative 0.9, alcohol at negative 0.3, cigarettes between negative 0.32 and negative 0.4, and fresh tomatoes at around negative 2. The demand for marijuana is still relatively inelastic, but we should be mindful that possible substitutes like alcohol are less elastic, and at least one study finds significant cross-price elasticity of demand between legal and illegal cannabis, suggesting the illicit market can substitute if the legal market gets too pricey. But will the post-legalization world still have an illicit market for marijuana? We'll explore that next.